Hi there, this is Connor Hodger with the Optron 2.1. Today I'm going to talk to you about some of its physical features. If you don't know, the Optron is an open source project to make a 21st century electrical instrument that uses a whole host of different sensors to interact with the musician in a natural way. The first thing I want to talk about is the ergonomics of the Optron. One of the big concerns with it was making sure that it's easy to use, it feels comfortable when you're playing it, and it's just a welcoming experience for the musician. One of the things that contributes to that is the actual fretboard here. So the fretboard contains two different sensors, a position and a pressure sensor. So when playing it, it acts just like a guitar fretboard, where you press and how hard you press matters. Right now we have this layered with the two sensors, then some silicone, and then this Teflon, which is up on top here. The backing of this is a kind of a groove, so that your thumb fits in it, so you can just slide and play however you want to play it. And it's overall, it's just comfortable. Another thing that's important when playing with the fretboard is the fact that sometimes the instrument doesn't even use the fretboard. So being able to handle it in such a manner is important. So the fretboard has a built-in little groove on the bottom of it, so that you're able to just put your fingers there and lift it up and move it around if you want, or just hold it like this. Really, the whole point is you can hold it wherever you want. That's the whole point of this, is just to make it as hands-on as possible for the musician. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the EPIC and the wires management system that goes with it. So this part right here runs the wires from the fretboard to the PCB, which I'll talk about later, as well as it helps manage the EPIC. And the EPIC is a flex sensor that changes the more you flex it or hit it on stuff. So it's like a reverse guitar pick. The more you flex it, the more difference it makes. So right here is just a little kind of platform you can play it on. Really, you can play it on whatever you want to hit it on, whatever will bend the sensor, doesn't matter. But this just makes it easy for the musician. And this can just dangle like this. Then all the wires go and are routed to the PCB. That's not attached. The PCB holder, part of the considerations for this were that it was able to be set on platforms, which is why it's squared off on both sides, but also offers some protection to the PCB from just random things coming at it while you're performing or just wearing it, like I'm doing right now. It has a slot to help to manage wires coming from the IR sensor array, which I'll talk about in just a sec, to help it connect to the different JST connectors that are on the PCB. That's one of the other big changes that we made with this from Optron 2.0. All the connections are with JST, so you're able to disconnect them, reconnect them. It really just sort of abstracts different pieces. So one component is a certain component, then there's the wire component, and then there is the component that it plugs into. So moving on, all these wires I move up here into the IR sensor array. And one of the considerations of the IR sensor is we really don't want the musician, we were talking about ergonomics, we don't want the musician feeling uncomfortable with interacting with it. Because a lot of times the musician may not be someone who is technically is a technical person or doesn't work with electronics that much. And so electronics can be scary. It's like, can I touch this? Can I not? So to help alleviate that, we kind of hide them a little bit, hide them from how the musician's own fingers, so that they will really have to put some effort in to interact with them. That's why they have these lips. They're kind of protected, and it just kind of makes it a lot more ergonomic. This right here is the accelerometer and the gyroscope. This uses the wire management system, running all the wires down here, the same system the IR sensors use. It's mounted right next to the strap mount, which I'll talk about in a second, so that when rotating, it's as close to the center of gravity as possible, the center of rotation as possible. Moving on to the strap mount, we originally had a strap mount on both sides, like a guitar strap, but having a one-point access, using a saxophone strap or anything with one-point access, really frees you up to be able to interact with it. You don't have to be putting your hand through a strap, you don't have to be moving it out. If you want to, you can just let it hang, interact with a different sensor, just change the way you can play it. Because there's lots of different ways you can play this. You can only be interacting with the IR sensors, you can be just hanging out, playing it like a guitar. You could be using it with the gyro and the accelerometer. So that's why there's so many advantages to just having one point of access. Okay, now I'd like to talk about some improvements that we'd like to see from the 2.1 into the 2.2. One of the big ones is wire management. Right now, along this part of it, there's not a lot of wires, which is really great. But as you can see, there's tons of wires coming off of this end. What we'd really like to do is come up with a better system to manage these wires so that they're not flopping around like this. We have some solutions we're coming up with for that. One of them is just making these shorter. We made them these long as we're prototyping and figuring this thing out, but in the future they'll be much shorter. Another big improvement is having taller mounts for the IR sensors. We do want to make these as small as possible for people with smaller hands than I have. But the taller you have off of these light mounts, the less the infrared interacts with the light bar sensor, or the LED strip, the thing that's making all the light. As well as we'd like to have a little bit more shielding in the form of more plastic coming out, blocking the light. Another big improvement we'd like to make is these wire management system. We'd like to make this a little more ergonomic. These are not as ergonomic as the fretboard. You will be interacting with it less, or changing your grip on it less, but it leaves some to be desired. It's a little small, it's kind of not quite sure where to grab it. That could be improved. Then another big improvement is with the IR sensors. Adding insets instead of just having a hole where we mount the IR sensors. Right now, there's just a screw poking through the back of these mounts, and they're screwed in. We want to have a melted in socket so that you can just have one piece of hardware you have to turn in order to get these mounted. Because it's a kind of a pain to run the wires and get it screwed back in. If a wire goes bad or something you want to perform maintenance on it, you have to disassemble it a little bit in order to access that. So we'd like to just make it completely accessible from the front. And then last thing is we would like to add a little bit shorter hardware. The hardware is okay for now, but we'd really like to rethink some of the hardware we're using. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.